Some confrontations are loud, they end in shouting, raised voices, security being called, someone dramatically declaring, "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," while everyone nearby pretends not to listen while absolutely listening. Airports and aeroplanes are especially good at producing those kinds of scenes. Put a few hundred tired strangers in a metal tube, add delays and cramped seats, and suddenly everyone's patience is hanging by a thread. But then there are confrontations that end very differently. No shouting, no dramatic standoff, just silence. The kind of silence that spreads across a room, or in this case an aeroplane cabin, while everyone wonders the same thing. What just happened? This story belongs to that second kind of confrontation. It begins on an ordinary commercial flight. No emergency announcements, no delays, no storm outside the window. Just passengers boarding, overhead bins slamming shut, and the quiet routine that happens thousands of times every day at airports around the world. Except on this particular flight, something unusual was about to unfold, and almost nobody on board realized it until it was already over. The passenger. Her name, according to most versions of the story, is Skylar. Whether that is her real name has never been confirmed. And honestly, if you were involved in something like this, you might prefer a little anonymity too. What most accounts agree on is how she was described. Military, recently off duty, exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from missing a night of sleep, but from finishing a long shift that drains every last ounce of energy from your body. She had just finished that kind of shift. And like many people after a long day, she wanted exactly one thing: to go home. No ceremony, no attention, just a seat on a plane and a quiet flight. She booked the flight last minute. There wasn't time to change clothes, no time to stop somewhere comfortable, no time to reset. So she boarded the plane exactly as she was, still wearing her uniform. If you've ever flown after a long day, you probably know the feeling. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not trying to start conversations. You're just trying to get from point A to point B without someone reclining their seat into your kneecaps. Skylar boarded quietly. No announcement, no recognition. No one greeted her with a salute or applause. Just another passenger stepping onto the aircraft with a bag over her shoulder and the weight of a long day following close behind. Others looked a little longer. And then there was one passenger who noticed her much more than anyone else. The man in the aisle seat. As Skylar walked down the narrow aisle, she felt it. That small shift in the atmosphere that people sometimes sense before anything is said out loud. Someone staring too long. Someone whispering. You know the kind of whisper. Not subtle enough to hide the fact that it's about you. She glanced to the side. 2 rows ahead, a man leaned toward the passenger next to him. He was speaking quietly, but not quietly enough. He gestured with his hand, and the direction he pointed was unmistakable. Directly at her. Skylar didn't react. If you spend enough time in public-facing roles, especially in the military, you develop a useful skill, ignoring unnecessary noise. So she kept walking, row after row, passengers shifting bags, adjusting headphones, negotiating silent seat armrest treaties with strangers. Eventually, she reached her row. But before she could step in, the man stood up. He moved into the aisle, blocking her path. Now, technically, airplane aisles are not known for their spaciousness. Even standing normally can feel like you're playing a game of human Tetris. But this man positioned himself in a way that made it very clear. He was not stepping aside. He told her the seat was already taken. Skylar calmly replied that it was her seat. She showed him the boarding pass, seat number printed clearly, row number matching perfectly. No confusion, no mystery. Just a very normal boarding pass doing exactly what boarding passes are designed to do. Confirm where you're supposed to sit. But the man didn't move. Instead, his tone changed. His voice rose just enough for nearby passengers to hear. He accused her of lying. He said people like her always think they deserve special treatment. Now at this point, the surrounding passengers were beginning to pay attention, which is something airplane passengers are remarkably good at. Not openly staring, oh no, just very carefully pretending to scroll through their phones while their ears are doing 90% of the work. Phones started appearing. Some people record everything these days, not because they know something interesting will happen, but because something interesting might happen. And when it does, the internet tends to reward whoever hit record first. Meanwhile, the cabin grew quieter. That strange kind of silence that only exists in enclosed spaces. Restaurants, elevators, airplanes, spaces where everyone becomes suddenly aware of the tension in the air. Skylar still didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She didn't try to push past him. Instead, she pressed the call button, the small one above the seat. The universal airline signal for, "We might need a professional here." The confirmation A. Flight attendant arrived moments later. She asked what was going on. Skylar calmly handed over her boarding pass. The attendant checked the number, looked at the seat, looked at the passenger list on her device, and confirmed exactly what Skylar had already said. The seat belonged to her. At this point, most normal disagreements would end. Someone shrugs, someone says, "My mistake," everyone moves on with their day. But that's not what happened here. The man refused to move. Instead, he doubled down. His voice grew sharper. The problem, it seemed, was no longer about a seat. It had become something else entirely. A power struggle, a public display. The kind where someone decides they're not backing down, mainly because other people are watching. If you've ever seen someone dig themselves deeper into an argument simply because admitting they're wrong would feel embarrassing, you already understand what was happening. And that's when the story takes its turn. The note. Instead of arguing, Skylar reached into her pocket. She pulled out a small piece of paper. Folded. Plain. No dramatic gesture, no speech, no threats. She simply unfolded the paper and held it out to the man. Then she placed it into his hand. Quietly. Deliberately. The man looked at it, unfolded it, and whatever he read changed everything. Witnesses described the reaction in almost identical ways. His expression froze. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. He looked up at Skylar, then back at the paper, then back at her again. The entire exchange took only a few seconds, but in a quiet airplane cabin, it felt much longer. Finally, the man stepped aside. No argument, no protest, just a quick, quiet apology under his breath. He moved back into his seat, and the aisle was clear. Just like that. The silence that followed. No applause, no cheers, no dramatic moment where someone shouts, "Justice!" Just silence. Skylar stepped into her row and took her seat. Passengers looked at each other. Some raised their eyebrows. Others returned to their phones, now very curious about what they might have missed. The man sat stiffly in his seat. He avoided eye contact. And referenced an active federal investigation connected to him. Skylar hadn't guessed. She recognized him. According to the story, her military role involved coordination with aviation security or intelligence briefings. In other words, the kind of work where you occasionally memorize faces and names that most people would never notice. The man who had just tried to embarrass her in front of an airplane full of strangers was someone she already knew about. Not personally, but professionally. Whether he was a witness, a monitored individual, or someone connected to an investigation has never been publicly confirmed. But according to the account, the moment he saw his name written on that paper, he understood something immediately. She wasn't bluffing. And for the rest of the flight, according to witnesses, he didn't speak to her again. Naturally, everyone wanted to know the same thing. What was on that note? Skylar didn't say. Not on the plane, not to other passengers, not to the flight crew. When the plane landed, she exited like any other passenger. No announcement, no explanation. Just another traveler walking through the terminal. But stories have a way of spreading, especially unusual ones. What she allegedly revealed. According to later accounts, Skylar eventually explained the note privately, not publicly, not on social media, but to someone who later shared the story anonymously. The note, according to that account, contained only a single sentence. It listed the man's full name.
And suddenly, the power dynamic changed very quickly.
Could this really happen? That's where the mystery deepens. There is no public record confirming that a service member would legally carry or disclose investigative information during a commercial flight. That kind of information is typically tightly controlled. But professionals in security fields acknowledge something interesting. Joint task forces exist. Threat briefings happen. Faces get remembered. And sometimes people who normally exist only in files and briefings appear unexpectedly in real life. Airports, after all, are crossroads. Thousands of strangers pass through the same space every day, which means occasionally the wrong people cross paths. What makes this story continue circulating isn't proof, it's plausibility. The quiet confidence, the lack of escalation, the immediate change in the man's behavior. For people familiar with authority structures, those details feel believable, because real authority rarely needs to shout. Why the story went viral. The reason this story spread so quickly online is simple. It flips the usual script. There was no shouting match. No dramatic viral meltdown. No security dragging someone away down the aisle. Just a small moment, a folded note, and a reaction that told everyone watching that something serious had just happened. In a world where arguments often get louder and louder until someone loses control, this confrontation ended with almost no sound at all. The man's silence. According to the story, the man remained quiet for the rest of the flight. Head down, eyes forward. No more comments, no more attempts at confrontation. When the plane landed, he left quickly, still avoiding eye contact. And if the story is true, that silence may say more than any argument ever could. Because fear doesn't always look like panic. Sometimes it looks like compliance. Sometimes it looks like someone sitting very still in an airplane seat, hoping the person beside them doesn't say another word.
That's another case closed here in the Rotten Swamp. The truth always surfaces, no matter how deep it's buried. If you're hungry for more dark mysteries, hit subscribe and ring that bell. Until next time, keep your doors locked and your secrets buried deeper than mine. This is Rotten Swamp, where justice never rots.